For a limited time only, buy an Intel Core i5 or Core i7 CPU and get a free 3-month subscription to iRacing.com. Available from participating retailers. Click the link in the video description for more details. Now, y'all complained about my laboratory coat that I'd done wore before, but I have decided to completely change things up. If you don't want to see the lab coat in these videos about graphics card showdowns, then you don't have to anymore. So let's get ready to have a head-to-head showdown between the green team and the red team in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. So $100, $200, $300, and $400 are the price points that we'll be looking at to tell you what gives you the best performance in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Now we're done loaded up this here test bench with that there 3960X at 4 gigahertz. We've also got 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, a P9X79 Deluxe, as well as a 120 gig boot SSD, a 1000 watt Antec power supply, and this is our test bench we use for all graphics cards. We've also got a Corsair H100, keeping that overclocked CPU cool throughout our testing. The graphics cards, as you might well imagine, do vary somewhat. Now for our benchmarks, we use an in-game run only, no pre-canned benchmarks, no prefabricated numbers, nothing like that. So you can definitely click here to check out Slick's benchmarking guide tutorial for Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. And what we've got here is, as you can see, 8 graphics cards, well 7 plus 1 is 8. So we've got the 650 versus the 7770, the 660 versus the 7870, the 660 Ti versus the 7970, and the 670 versus the 7970, which is actually over there. Now the reason we've gone with that is we take the second lowest price card at ncix.com, and that is where we get our price reference from. If in your region the pricing is different, then you'll have to take the results with a grain of salt. We overclock every card, and you can check out the overclocked video card settings that we use in our videos in the graph that is actually in the video description. And I think the only thing left now is to find out whether these graphics cards perform or whether we're going to have to get the performance out of these graphics cards. We usually end up going a little over $100. So the 7770 is around $125 and the GTX 650 is around $120. However, in spite of the only 5% price difference between these two cards, the 7770 outperforms the other card by almost 30%, making it definitely the better option for Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. The reason we go over on the $100 price point is because you really shouldn't be buying a card of a lower tier than about a 7770 if you want to get good value for your dollar. Next up, we've got the 660 versus the 7870, and this one we had a price difference of only about 2%, whereas the performance difference was about 20%, going with the 7870 versus the 660, not to mention that if you bought a 7870 a little while ago, that you'll be getting a copy of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon for free in the mail anyway, if you got the Far Cry 3 Never Settle bundle.
No, any Never Settle bundle.
Any Never Settle bundle, excuse me. The 7950 and the GTX 660 Ti are actually very close. The 7950 wasn't priced as aggressively as it usually is when we do these comparisons, but we always take current pricing because we never know what's affecting pricing trends in the market. So the price difference was about 10% and the performance difference was about 10%. So these cards stacked up pretty much exactly the same from a price to performance ratio standpoint. 670 versus 7970. Now the 670 really didn't scale beyond the 660 Ti for us, which would indicate that there wasn't much benefit to the additional memory bandwidth as well as the other benefits that make the 670 faster. So there you go. It was bottlenecked somewhere else along the line, but the 7970 improves performance a little bit over the 7950 and is able to achieve about a 17% performance difference between it and the GTX 670 in spite of the only 6% difference in price. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you for checking out our Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon Performance Showdown with these graphics cards. Oh, I should mention the driver revisions we were using. So for NVIDIA, we were using 314.22, and for AMD, we were using 13.4 drivers. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos where we lay the hammer down on graphics card performance.